Okay, we're back out in the shop. Things are going to change here soon in my format. What? Just for a little while. But anyway, I wanted to show you how my day starts. I come out now, I'm down to one grinder and I'm too cheap to buy another one, but I really want that variable speed Bauer. Anyway, so I got my piece of junk, and it really is Central Machine. Underneath, behind here, there's two screws that hold the motor to the base. If those screws come a little bit loose, a quarter turn, the thing sounds more like a freight train. I ran it like that way for about a month. When I started investigating it one day, I was like, wait a minute, there's some wobble here. So I opened it up, tightened them up, and it's been fine. But it's starting to get loose again. Fast forward, last night, I'm like, I want to make this specific knife called a coal rosing knife. Looks pretty easy to make, don't need a lot of heat treating. And I'm like, well, to get the angles, I need a grinder, not that's a fiber wheel, with a tool rest. I don't have a tool, the one that was on here was hideous. The one that was on my old grinder that fell apart wouldn't fit. So anyway, last night I'm like, wait a minute. I think this was with my 1x strip sander. I still have this kicking around. So I can make a tool rest that also will allow me to do this for when I'm doing lathe tools like gouges. I think that's going to work. But I took the motor apart. I put Loctite on it, tightened them down as stiff as I could. I'm like, I need to let that set for a while. I don't know why, because I'm not using the grinder to do all this part. But I was like, oh, the drainage, we don't have curbs on our street. We just have a sidewalk that ends in gravel and then asphalt. So the water, it turns into a lake. And I've been trying to maintain it, and it needed some maintenance. So while I'm letting the thing dry that I don't need to use anyway, I went out and I dug a ditch. And now I'm really tired and I don't want to do this. And I'm sorry I bored you with all that, but we're going to do it. I have a few ideas. I don't know if any of them are going to work, so hang on. We'll dive in. If it works, you guys get all the credit, not me. Thanks for being here. Let's move on. Okay, so this is not a video about making a knife. It's about making a stand. So take a stand, people. There is my idea. This will be clamped to the new plywood base I'm making. This is just a rough cut. I'm going to make a nicer one, and but that'll fit. And then I have to put a set screw in the side because no. I had to bring it up higher to get this in the center of the roundy round stone, not below the bottom of the stone. That's not good. So it's up. That's why this. So now I have the right dimensions, but you can see this was just a rough drill. I could use it, but I'm not gonna. So we're gonna make another piece that is nice and square. Mount it to cut the board to size, mount it to the board. Figure out how to put a set screw in there that doesn't come loose. I think I have an idea. And go from there. Simple. So I'm just kind of, look at that light. Sorry. I'm just taking you through the steps here, but not showing you how to use each tool. If that's what you're looking for today, sorry. I drilled this through. I found a 1/4 that I can use. It's just the right length for a set screw, but here's the problem. That wood is just going to give out. So what I'm going to do is drill the hole, drill a little bit bigger hole, and countersink it, I guess would be the word, kind of. And I'm going to epoxy in a 1/4 nut in the side of the wood. So in theory, when I'm putting it in, it will just use that to hold straight and true and strong. Problem is, it's cold as all get out, so the epoxy's gonna take a while. So we'll be back. Back again. Okay, I got the hole and the countersink done. What I'm going to do, if I just shove the nut in there and epoxy it, it'll probably be okay. But I'm going to keep the bolt in it so that I can, you see how much, no, you can't see that. When I do this, there's a lot of wiggle room, and I want it in the center, or more in the center of the hole, to set up against the flat spot. So I'm going to use the bolt as kind of an alignment tool while the epoxy is put in and set. And I think that'll do just fine. It looks pretty good. Everything is snug. I made it so that everything is, not a lot of wiggle room. So like that, yeah, that's gonna work, I think. Let's find out. Okay, we're back with our grinder mods. The nut, I epoxied it in last night, and it seems to be holding. I don't know how it's going to hold up when I put a little pressure on it, but it shouldn't have to be that tight either. Came out to get working today. I have so much stuff recorded of things I'm going to post, and I started on one thing, and last night a lady came by. On a whim, I put those, remember I made the lights out of the old insulators? I made little lamps. It's back a few videos. I threw them back up on Marketplace. Sold them all yesterday to one lady. Made 120 bucks. Okay, but she brought and said, I have this little insulator. She loves the color. Can you make a base for it? So I had some really cool dark maple. I don't think that'll show up real well for you, but trust me, it's really nice. So I made her a base. I'm going to contact her today and have her pick it up. Kind of a free bonus piece. I don't want to take money for it because I just felt like that would be a cool thing to do. And then my daughter said, you need to make more Christmas ornaments. Well, I got to carve some, I guess. But I was out here and I went and I took one of the last pieces of that 4x4, not the last piece, but pretty much almost. And I did a bandsaw, 3D cutout. And then you put a really dark stain that hides all the stuff you don't feel like sanding. You put a little red ribbon on it and ho, ho, ho. So we're back to, and then I found 4 1/4-20 bolts with washers and nuts, and they match. So I took one of those old shelves that was in our spare bedroom, and it had this lip, flipped it over, hooked it on my bench, and this is what we're gonna mount the grinder to. So I just drilled the holes out. I'm gonna countersink the bottoms so it can sit flat. And then I'm gonna bolt it to the grinder, and then we'll start seeing about how we can make this attachment work. And then at some point we can get to the purpose of all this, is to make a grinder to make a knife. So bear with me. We're getting through this. Not much. Yeah, gonna just countersink a little bit. Well, that should be a nice steady base for this, and so long as my Loctite holds, no reason I should have to take this off of the base. Ha ha ha. No reason yet. Okay. Checking the foot pounds. There we go. Equal torque. Okay. Now we move on to mounting, hopefully, it's the same one, right? Yeah. That to hold the base. We'll go get it. Okay. I think this is day 4 of this stupid thing. My piece I made with the nut in it, of course the epoxy didn't hold it when I tried to put pressure on the set screw that I made. So then I got smart and put a washer over the nut, and that way I could tighten it and the nut would back into the washer, and then I put screws around it to hold it tight. It worked like a charm until I decided 3 screws wasn't enough. I needed to add 1 more. And I thought, the other 3 I pre-drilled. I don't need to pre-drill this one. So I cracked the piece. So I've made a new piece now. Looks just like the old one because the concept is there. I like to show my screw-ups because I feel there's a lot of us like me. I hope there's a lot of us like me. So now I'm gonna drill a hole for the 1/4 set screw, cut this out, place it over the recessed nut, screw it in, and now when I put the set screw in, the back pressure will go against the metal plate, which will be attached to the wood using 4 pre-drilled holes. That's a lot. So, a lot to say, I mean. So, let's try it. Maybe this will explain it better. So now, when I tighten the screw, the back pressure from the nut trying to pull out is going to push against this plate, which will be screwed in. So I marked the outer dimensions of the plate. So now I'm going to cut it smaller. Okay. I'm already thinking I shouldn't have done this. But look, it's on and it's adjustable. Now here's the next hurdle. I don't know if you can see it from there. Now, let's move it. Sorry. For visual purposes. It sits here. A 90 degree, that's perfect. But when I rock it back, way too much gap. So it has to slide forward. So I think I'm gonna put a slot in the base, come up from the bottom, so I can move it and tighten it down. And now that I say that out loud, it's not the greatest idea, is it? I don't know. Again, anyway, it has to be adjustable. And but look, it's working. It's a set screw that sets it in place. One hurdle after another. Clearly, I was never an engineer, but I think we can come up with something and not abandon it completely. Right? Right? Please? Yeah, anyway. I'll be back. Sometimes you gotta sit back and stop overthinking. When I tilt it and it needs to move closer, that's why I put the set screw in. I can slide this in and out and tighten the set screw. I don't know. It's been a long week. But so now I just need to mount this to the base and we can give it a test. I'm nervous. All right, just maybe we've reached the end. I was gonna pre-test it and then bring you back as if, oh look, let's test it together. But what's the fun in that? If this is gonna be a disaster, it should be a disaster for all of us. I'm gonna bring you in closer. The knife I'm making, you use the back end of an old drill bit to do it. And so I set this up at about 22.5 degrees. I'm just gonna give, I don't have my water to quench it, so I'm gonna give it a quick test just to see if the theory's gonna work, and we'll call it good. But again, I didn't wanna do it and not let you see real time. So I'm gonna move the camera around and then we'll do it together. All right, this is a legit safety gear. Yes to that. Early on, hang on. All right, Joe. Well, let's wrap this up. Early on, woo, look at that. Just wanted to show it off one more time. Did I take before pictures? I don't think that's an option here. Early on in the project, I remounted this to the base. Then I mounted the base to the wood. The wood clamps tight to the table. Set my angle, and we gave it a rough test. I don't know how well that'll... And basically, I'm looking to get an angle that's kind of sharp here. No. Yeah, sharp angle. And it's also going to be angled, beveled this way. The knife will be put in a handle, not this, and basically you use it to cut lines in the wood, which open the fibers, but don't remove the fibers. I'll show you in another video. Colrosing, it's called. This was a pain. It's just not in my wheelhouse kind of projects. I'm, daddy homeowner guy. But this was fun. I could have went out and bought a new bench. I can buy a beautiful Colrosing knife made by my favorite knife maker for $40. But, I probably will. Anyway, but this was a lot of fun, and I'm glad you were here for it. I think this video might come off a little jumbled, probably like most of mine. But we got through it, and there was a lot going on in between me getting here. So thank you once again for being here, and I'm going to edit this down as much as I can. I'll see you next week. Thanks.